Hey, how are you?
I want to introduce you. This is my friend Anna. She is a dating coach as well as a matchmaker. She's been doing this
Mhm.
for over 5 years. Is that correct?
6 years, yeah.
Over 6 years. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of our generation has spent the past 10 years dating through dating apps. And
Mhm.
there seems to be a resurgence of matchmakers, and we all need a dating coach. So I'm so excited to chat with you tonight. So, do
Yeah,
you want to give us a little intro and then we'll dive into our discussion tonight?
sure. Yeah, I'm Anna. I'm based in New York, but from California, so I have clients on both coasts. And I think what made me want to be a matchmaker and help friends originally is that most of my friends in New York had never dated as an adult in a city outside of New York. They thought this was normal, like dating all these different people and, not being committed relationships, just kind of dating casually. Like that's not normal in most cities in the world, let alone America. I used to live in San Francisco, and there was one of the only places in America, and one of the only places in the world where there's more college educated men than women. So women control the dating culture. In most places, like in New York, there's more college educated women. So men are like, they're the prey and we're the hunters in a way. So when I moved here, I was like, oh my God, why are women dating like men? This is crazy. Like, is everyone dating so casually? And I just felt really passionately about it. And then after having, um, you know, five or so friends that got married through me, either setting them up directly or kind of pushing them one way or another. I had a good friend that was like, you should make money doing this, which I didn't think was real, but it is apparently.
Well, look, you play a vital part in terms of bringing people together, and I think you started to allude to one of the big challenges of dating, which is sometimes geography.
Yeah.
Um, can you talk a little bit more about other challenges you think we all face in our weekly, monthly dating, lives?
Yeah. With anything in general, humans don't like to have too many options. The paradox of choice. I'm sure everyone's kind of heard of this by now, but when you have like the Cheesecake Factory is a good example. There's so many things on the menu that you kind of don't even know what to pick because it's like, oh my God, like there's just too many options. So back in the day when people dated, who were to high school with, college, this was the best of your options out of like, a couple hundred people. You picked the best one for you. You got married and that was it. Now we are like literally choosing between millions, billions of people. So it feels like the possibilities are kind of endless. And because of that, it's just like this recycling of people. And there's just no limit to it. And because of that, we're kind of not like necessarily treating people like trash, like throwing them away easily, but also not really humanizing dating, where it's kind of like all this ghosting and not picking one person and kind of seeing where it goes, just constantly going on dates and dates and dates and making a sport of it. That's really honestly what's keeping people depressed and single. Not and not focused on the end goal, which is hopefully to meet someone and to have a family if that's what you want.
Yeah, of course. And so it seems that like there's too much distraction. It's kind of like when
Yeah,
you go to a candy store, if you have too many options, you don't know which one to pick. And
exactly.
our parents grew up in a world where computers didn't exist, where they certainly didn't have Instagram Live. Um,
No
and
Tinder.
and if someone said they're going to meet you for a date, you call on the phone and you'd say, okay, we're going to meet at 6 o'clock. And if the date didn't show up and it was like 6:30 or 7, you just waited. Like people were a little more, they had more patience. And
Yeah.
there was more effort put into kind of respecting the other person's time. And the other thing I just wanted to say was, and I'm sure you're going to talk about this, but if that first date didn't go well, they tried again because it wasn't as easy to meet another person.
Hmm. Exactly. We find the smallest things to say that we don't like about someone. Oh, they're not a good match for us. Like, oh my God, he wore cargo shorts. End of the world. Never speak to him again. And like, he could change that. But yeah, there are so many reasons that we find to say no to somebody rather than looking for reasons to say yes. Because your next date is literally a swipe away or whatever. I think it's that mentality that's kind of keeping people. And also, I think since we do have more options, we're pickier. So now it's, I find women pickier than men, which people find that surprising, but it's
And
really like,
why is that? Why do you feel that women are pickier than men?
I think it's almost like biological, where it's like, okay, like even if a man makes, say, $500,000 a year, he does not care if a woman also makes $500,000 a year. Like he doesn't necessarily look for that. But if a woman makes 500,000 a year, she wants someone who makes as much as her, if not more. So it's a difference of mentality. I do think it's biological, where even as women are more successful than ever today, they still want the man to be more. But when you're already up here, it's really hard to find, more people that are up here. So you have to realize like what's really important. You can afford your lifestyle. You can have, you don't necessarily need someone that's going to make more money than you're already making so much money. So that's something that I see a lot with women. And also, you have to think about what you bring to the table and what that person's going to bring, and it doesn't match. Like I hear a lot of women that like some female clients that they want me to present these like beautiful, tall, successful tech founder, guys. I'm like, this guy's dating a Victoria's Secret model. Like he's not going to date you. Like, it's like, it's really thinking about what's possible, what's realistic. But I do think like with the dating apps and social media, we're now connected to people we never had opportunities to be connected to before. So we're kind of always like, shooting for the stars, shoot for the moon. Really, we should be dating in our lane. Like what realistically makes sense for your life? Realistically, who's going to like you back? And I do see that all the time, where people are just not really set in reality of like
Yeah, of
who
course.
they're going to end up with.
So
And
so what
yeah.
advice, Anna, like, do you want to give people about, like, okay, so now we're overwhelmed. There's too many options. There's four different dating apps. There's a dating coach. Um, how do you get, like, how do you change the mentality? What advice should we all kind of follow?
Yeah, I think really you have to think about what's your goal. So if you're like, I want to get married, I want to have a family, I want to live in the suburbs, if you're a woman, like I want to stay home with the kids, or if you want to work, really think about what do you want in your life? What does this year look like? What does 5 years look like? What does 10 years look like? Really get down to details of what works for you. What do you want? Because I think a lot of people are dating without really knowing what they want. And if you don't really know who you are and what you want, a lot of times you're dating to be a people pleaser. I see this all the time, where you're on a date and you just want the other person to like you, but it's like, do you like them? Do you
So are
want
you
the,
suggesting we sit down, we make a checklist and we say, these are the things I want,
but it's about you, it's more
or
rather than
this
about
is
that
who I am
person.
and this is what I
Yes.
want?
Yeah, I think it's more about who you are. Because I think a lot of people aren't really clear on who they are. And so when they go on dates, it's really hard to kind of, I don't want to say sell yourself, but it's hard to kind of let the other person get to know you if you're not really even clear of like where you see yourself in a couple of years, or what your goals are, what you want, how you want to raise a family. Do you want to be someone that's really close to their in-laws, or you want to be far away? Do you want to live overseas? Do you, want to be in the city the rest of your life? Or do you want lots of animals, or no? Like really think about, like, how much money you want to have saved by the time you hit this. Like really get specific on what your life looks like. Because then when you meet someone that shares those similar goals and values, it's going to be really obvious that you two are aligned. But I found this even like with myself before, when I was dating when I was younger, and I was really kind of people pleasing a bit, because I met someone I thought was really cute. I liked him. So he was like, oh, I want to live on a farm and be with, horses. I'm like, yeah, me too. I don't know if I necessarily, I don't know if I want that, but maybe I convinced myself that at the time because I liked him, but it didn't work out because then, we weren't actually as aligned as I thought we were. So I think that's why people really need to get down and think about, what does your life look like? What's going to make you happy, rather than people please and you get 6 months, a year into a relationship, and then you realize your goals are different. You actually don't want the same things. I see that all the time.
The only concern I have is that I don't think there's that perfect person out there for, like, I don't believe there's a carbon copy of you or that perfect person that's out there. A lot of it has to boil down. It boils down to compromise, right? There's certain things that you have to be willing to kind of adjust and learn about yourself. And right, is that correct?
Yeah, totally. But there are some things that are like, if that's going to work for your lifestyle, like if you do not want kids, you should not date someone who wants kids, right? Like I had a friend, she's going back and forth with her partner because she eventually sees herself moving back to the West Coast, and he's very in the East Coast. And she knew this from the beginning, but she kind of thought, well, he's going to fall in love with me and maybe, he'll change his mind. But it's been what, like 6 months now, he hasn't changed his mind. And that's a constant place of conflict because, like,
Of
she
course.
kind of was hoping he would change, but those are both core things that they want in their life that they're not going to agree on. So that's why I say like really think about what your life looks like, where you want to be, how you want it to look. So that way you, at least on the date, you have things to talk about that are real. Like if you see yourself living on a beach and it's really important to you and you have to be on the ocean, the water, you're a big surfer or whatever, and if you might meet someone who's really going to be into that lifestyle too. And that's going to be a really good match. I don't believe that there's only one person on this planet that you are destined for and that is it. I think you could have multiple soulmates and multiple people in this life that you can connect with, and you might in different times, like you see widowers all the time falling in love again. Like I do think it's
Certainly.
possible.
You know,
I think
I
it's
had
too
a
stressful to think there's only one person. Like you can't think like that. So that's why, that's why think about yourself and what makes sense for you in this moment in time.
so when you speak to clients, what characteristics, what values do you like emphasize that they should kind of be seeking when they're looking
Yeah.
for a partner? And I think they're kind of, this is universal. This applies to kind of everyone.
Yeah, I think it starts with like yourself. So if you're someone that is a religious person and whatever religion that could be, that's going to be a core value that you should be, thinking about when you're looking for a partner, whether they're open to, joining the religion, whatever you are, or if they already are that religion, if they're totally against it, like those are things that you're going to have to figure out. I also think you have to think, like I tell male clients, just when you are on a date, because women, we want security. We want to know what our life is going to look like with you. So if you build like an image of like this life of like, okay, I am saving up because I want to have, a vacation home. I want to have a home in the city, or I want to be in the suburbs, or it's really important for me to be close to my family because my parents are older and I want them to be around my future kids. Like whatever it is, like you need to build that life and see if the other person responds well to that. So I think that involves all the things. I think I don't think you have to be specific with how much money you're making or anything, but I think there should be like a level of like, this is what I'm working towards. It's what I see my life looking like in 5 or 10 years. And, you want to kind of create like, not a fantasy, but like what a reality could look like with you. So obviously you shouldn't be lying. You want to
Okay.
be
So,
really honest about like what it looks like, but that's what I think like a first date, you really have to kind of see like how you're aligned with lifestyles.
okay. So you start dating. What are the important things that you should be looking for as you're going on a date? And how slow should you go, or how fast should you go?
It's really hard to answer because everyone is different. Like in New York, everyone is so busy. You feel like, it could take 2 dates a month, that's all the time that you have for either person, which I don't think is good either. But then also people are like, oh my gosh, I spent the last 6 days in a row with this person, which, that's a lot too. I think in any kind of, new relationship, you still have to have time for yourself, for your life that you was before the person that you met, started dating. But you do need to have time. Like I was just talking to a friend who's like, all right, I haven't heard from the guy that I'm seeing. I already booked up my weekend. He didn't da da da. There's no flexibility, which is I don't think is good either. Like you have to, have space in both and not be like too planned where like there's no space for someone else to come in. And I see that definitely as like a New York thing with people just being like so booked every single day for like a whole month. Then you're not leaving yourself
Well,
any room
okay, I
for
think part of
dreaming.
that is, we all don't want to be alone. So it's about avoiding loneliness. And
Like you
so
have to like
finding,
your own company first.
of course, of course. But I think a lot of the reasons why people socially book up with their friends or go to events and they don't necessarily allocate enough time for dating is because they don't want to be alone. And the city, especially New York City,
Yeah.
can be a lonely place.
Oh,
Um,
I know. Yeah, I mean, listen, you should absolutely have plans, but like if you go on a date with someone and you don't have time for the next 2 weeks to meet them again, that's a problem too, because you need to nurture a new connection, a spark. Otherwise, they're going to meet someone who has time for them.
Of course. And so let's talk about the red flags. What are the red flags? As you're dating, going the first couple of dates, what should we do? How do we identify them, and how do we respond to them?
Yeah, I think common things that I hear from people, and myself included, is when you hear someone say something that does not align with what you're looking for, take them for their word and don't think that they're going to change their mind later. Like if they're saying like, yeah, I really don't see myself having kids, I just don't see in the cards for me. Don't think like, oh, maybe I can trick them after they, like that shouldn't be your mindset. And also just see like, just, with just see how they treat you naturally. Like my sister who's 10 years older, she'd always tell me the advice her best guy friend would tell her, like when you first meet someone, don't tell them like, oh, I like it when you call me 3 times a week, or I like it when you just are like, don't say anything. Just see how they naturally treat you, because that's how they are as people. That's how they naturally think that you deserve to be treated. And if it works for you, then great. And if not, then just say no, thank you, and move on. Having to constantly tell someone like, you need to text me more. I need to spend more time with you. I need you to do this and I need to do that. And then it's like they might change for, I don't know, like a week or something, but they're going to go back to naturally do what you do. And you're consistently have the same problem again and again and again and again and again. So I think it's just, you don't, it's the red flags like smoking bowl. Everyone has like those like basic red flags, but really you just need to be observing and seeing if you like what you see. And if not, then you need to move on and not
Uh,
ignore it.
And how important is communication, transparency, and emotions in a relationship?
Highly important. With anyone new that you meet, I always say it's like think of like an onion, you want to peel back layer by layer. In a first date, I don't believe in like dumping everything that has ever gone wrong in your life. Like, listen, I'm divorced. She took half the money. The kids hate me. My job sucks. My shoes are tight. My feet hurt. Like, just cut, you know what I mean? Like, your date is not there to be a therapist or just to listen to you venting and complaining. And I see like a lot of people, especially like older clients that do that. And like, listen, we've all have baggage. We've all been through high times, low times, everything. But that's not, first date is not a place to unveil all your dirty secrets. I think with each date, you can kind of show a little more vulnerability, but I think it's more in storytelling. So like I like to tell people about like my family that, we immigrated from Russia when I was 2, and I'll tell the story of how we ended up in Monterey, California, because it's absolutely crazy that I ended up in one of the most beautiful places in the country, completely by luck. So I'll share that story. And so they'll get to see a little bit about my family, my background. And that's something that like, when I share it with you, like you get a little piece of my soul in a way. I'm not going to tell them like, oh, well, we were living in like squalor. I'm not going to say all like the opposite horrible parts, but I'll tell them a little bit about the story, and they can get a feel of who I am as a person and like kind of my background. And the next time maybe I'll reveal a little bit more, and then, a little bit more. But that people have to earn the right to get that trust from you and to hear, all those kind of deeper vulnerabilities that you have. It's not for like day one.
So when is it appropriate to be vulnerable?
I think you start from the first date, but like you start slow, you share a little about your family, like storytelling, just share a little bit about, your family's background. If there's something, we all have interesting stories, especially in America. All our families came from somewhere. We all are who we are because of our family. So I think just sharing a little bit how you grew up, like maybe you spent the weekends fixing up old cars with your dad, and that's something that's really special to you, and you want to do that with your son one day, and that's really cool. Like that's like a really sweet story. If a guy told me something like that on a date, I'd be like, wow, like I have a mental image of it, and it's like a really positive one. I think it's really sweet. And I'm like, oh, like that builds intimacy when you share stories rather than being like, yeah, my dad, he was a mechanic. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. A lot of people ask, what do you do? Or like what, rather than the why or the how. I think those are much interesting questions than just kind of like stating basic facts.
Um, so these are the early stages of dating. Um, when do you know that you're kind of transitioning from casual dating to something that's more serious? I actually stumbled upon an article on your website called the 3 month rule. Um, and I would be curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I was reading a study that a psychologist did that basically talked about the first 3 to 6 months, but definitely the first 3 months. Anytime you meet someone new, it's almost like you don't really know them. They're kind of projecting whatever they want you to think that they are. And after about 3 months, that's when the mask starts to fall and you kind of see their true colors and see who they really are. And that's why you see a lot of relationships kind of end around that 3 month mark. All my friends, even myself, there's so many times I've dated someone I thought they're amazing. And after 3 months, I was like, oh my gosh, they're like not at all who I thought they were. So that's why in the first 3 months, like, don't build up this like huge narrative in your head, like, we're getting married, we're doing this, we're going to Italy, we're da, 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 like I'm guilty of it too, but getting too excited and thinking like, oh my God, I found the one. 3 months, you don't know if you found the one or not. You can be excited, and it's awesome to be excited and to be hopeful in dating. You can be intrigued by someone, but it's you're kind of getting married to the outcome. So when something ends prematurely in your mind, you're so devastated because the outcome that you have created in your mind isn't going to happen now. So not only are you mourning a 3 month relationship, but you're mourning a wedding that didn't happen, children that didn't happen, growing old together that didn't happen, all these things. So it's just important to kind of take it day by day. Like, we can't control anyone else. We don't really know someone after 3 months, and just kind of being a little bit more logical. Of course, you should be excited and have emotions and, connect with someone, but don't think like, years and years ahead before we've earned that from them and they've earned that from us.
Why do you think it is a 3 month, 6 month kind of time frame when this kind of breakdown
Yeah.
of relationships usually happens? And how can we avoid this? Like, how can we avoid getting to this point where you spend 3 months with someone or 6 months? Because our time is precious, especially
Yeah.
as more and more people our age or our generation are getting married later in life.
Yeah.
And divorced too. There are many people who get divorced, and then they have to kind of go back into the dating pool, and it makes it very challenging.
I know. I think that's why it's so important to be so clear on what you want. If you are not so concerned about them liking you, you're really considering, do I like them? Do they fit in my life? Is this a really good match for me? Then I think we can avoid, these like little mini relationships again and again and again and again and again, and not ignoring red flags early on. Like, you notice like, oh, I feel a lot of anxiety during the week because I don't really hear from her. She never texts me back. I'm really not like, I know I'll see her on Saturday. That's great. But during the week, I have a lot of anxiety for some reason. She doesn't text me back. I don't know, it doesn't feel good. You don't ignore that feeling. Like, your body, like your gut, your body tells you when something's off, and you really need to listen to that. Like, you shouldn't be feeling anxiety when you first meet someone. You shouldn't be feeling anxiety from another human regardless, but you shouldn't be like, someone shouldn't have the ability to like make you feel so like, I can't sleep, I can't eat, my mind's consumed. No, like, that's not healthy. And that's something that, probably should cut that off earlier than later.
Okay, so now we get to the point where do we start? What advice do you give to everyone that's listening? We have 19 people on this Instagram live, and there's probably been more throughout the entirety. Um, we kind of mentioned the importance of being vulnerable, being trustworthy in a relationship, putting yourself out there. But where do we start? Should we be flooding ourselves with dating apps? Should we be going to events?
Yeah, I think if you know who you're looking for, go where they go. Like, I was at a dinner with some girls last night, and it was like a new cute restaurant, like Nolita, and there was a lot of women there, and they're like, "Where are all the guys?" And I was like, "Guys don't go to places like this. They go to steakhouses. You want to meet guys? Go to a steakhouse." Like, I thought that was really obvious, but like, they were just like, "Oh, huh." I was like, they're not going to go these cutesy little like, like, "Oh shit, I got a cauliflower." Like, they're not doing that. So really think about like who you're trying to meet, and like, if there's a community that you want to date within, like a religious community, or like, I played softball the last couple of summers. There's a community there. Find like pickleball. Oh my, everyone's obsessed with pickleball. Find whatever community interests you, and just go to those events. Make yourself and make it known. Like, talk to people. You mentioned like, oh, I'm single. If you know anyone, like, people love to play matchmaker. When I put on my Instagram that I'm looking for like someone in Miami, and my DMs are flooded with people wanting to help, and to be like, my dad, my sister, my whatever, like, just put it out there. And
Which is,
knowing
by
that,
the way, which is not easy for everyone to do. I mean, it's still challenging. You have a extrovert like personality, as do I. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on an Instagram live.
find an
But
extroverted friend and have them do it for you.
no, but I'm
If
saying
you're
if
too
you're
shy.
someone who's introvert, who's shy,
Yeah,
it can be challenging.
I know, but listen, this is like your life. You want to meet someone, you got to put yourself out there. And if you're feeling like, I can't, find a friend that's a little bit more extroverted, or even she's introverted too. At least you have each other to kind of encourage one another to go to events, be like, all right, like dare each other, like I dare you to go talk to two guys tonight. I dare, like make it a fun game. The worst case scenario that happens, you have a nice conversation, they're not interested, and they say bye. Like it's nothing bad's going to happen. The more you practice at it, the more second nature it's going to feel. And I mean, this post-COVID world that we're in, there's so many events. Like, and I have never had more people asking me to do events. So I'm like, maybe I will. If the people want it, I'll help. But there's so many opportunities to meet people in person again. That being said, like if you want to do apps, the apps are always there, and it's you're never you can go on there and find a date if you'd like. But I still think meeting in
Do you
person
think
is so much
women,
better.
do you think women, and separately, do you think men prefer meeting organically, or do you think they prefer meeting through apps?
I think everyone would rather prefers to meet organically, because when you see on an app, you really don't know anything about this person. You don't even know if it's catfish. You don't know if it's someone that's married or a felon or whatever. Like I've seen everything. People get scammed on there all the time. I would know. You just don't know what you're getting. And so many guys complain about like women not looking like their photos. And I met a guy on an app once. He had hair in the photos, showed up, he was bald. Would have been nice to know, like you just don't know what you're going to get. But in person, when you meet someone, the other part of the apps is you're preferencing out so many people. When you meet someone in person, like, oh my gosh, God forbid he's 5'9". But you know what? Like he was really cute. We had energy. That's okay. But on my apps, no under 6 feet, like things like that. When you meet someone in real life, like those kind of sillier preferences, I don't
I
think are
agree,
as
because
important.
on these dating apps, sometimes we restrict ourselves, and as a result, we're
Yeah,
preventing ourselves from meeting someone who might be great just because we put certain criteria for who we don't want to meet.
exactly. So,
So to sum it up, I want to end with, you gave us a lot of advice about how we should approach dating,
mm,
where we should actively look for new dates, how what intention, how we should be intentional. Um, what advice do you give to someone? Well, let me step back. We have all, at some point in our lives, dealt with rejection.
mm,
It happens to all of us. Um, what do you advise your clients in terms of dealing with rejection in a dating scene? A dating scene that can be very vicious and very tough and very challenging, as you alluded to in the beginning of
yeah.
our discussion, especially in New York City, but also I think in other cities. Um, what do you advise clients in terms of like how they should cope with the rejection, and how fast they should wait until they enter back into the dating scene?
Yeah, it's rejection is tough. Like I've been rejected a million times. Most of my friends have been rejected a bunch of times. It's never easier. Um, I'm reading the comments. I think you have some fans here. But
Maybe a few.
but I think with rejection, you just have to not take it personally because listen, if that person's not for you, they're not for you. Thank you, goodbye. And if there's anything you can learn from the experience, then it's really not a bad thing. Like whenever I go out with someone and it doesn't work out, if they want to know why I don't want to pursue things, I'll happily tell them, because I think feedback is a gift. Like my friend had to remind me of that because sometimes I don't want to hear it either. The feedback is a gift and we
So
can
wait,
all
let
improve.
me let me interrupt you there for a second.
Uh-huh.
So you do think it's important that the person, at least if you dated someone for a couple of months, that they're clear on why it
Yeah,
didn't work out?
I think you should. Like, even if it's one date, I would like to know what it is that, if someone told me, hey, Anna, you know what? You got a little too sloppy on the date. You were drank a little too much. I don't think that's really who you are, but that's not for me. I'm not a big drinker, but I wish you the best of luck. I would be like, thank you so much for that feedback because that's something I needed to hear. So with my clients, that's a big part of what we do, right? Because I put them on dates and I get feedback afterwards. And some of them do not want to hear my feedback, the feedback from their date, and they kind of get pissed at me. And I'm like, well, listen, you're the one that did these things. It didn't come across well, in a positive light. He or she felt uncomfortable or felt like you said some things that I know are not really you. So why did you say that? Like, a lot of people make self-deprecating jokes on dates. And yes, it's good to laugh at ourselves, but if you're constantly kind of putting yourself down, the person's going to be like, well, if you don't even think highly of yourself, why would I think highly of you? So you have to really think about how you're coming across. And yeah, I think if you're going on dates with someone and you choose not to see them anymore, and if they ask why, I think you should be honest. Sometimes they don't want to know, and you don't
Yeah.
need to like hurt anyone's feelings,
But
but
that's the mature thing to do.
yeah, the ghosting and stuff is so immature. Like only cowards ghost. I mean, if it's been one date and neither of you said anything to each other after, obviously that's fine. But if you're like dating someone, it's been weeks, maybe months, and you just never reach back out to them or don't respond to their last message, that is really bad dating karma, and that will go back around to you.
I agree. Well, Anna, this was phenomenal. For everyone who listened, I'm going to have all of your information tagged in the post. This will be
Perfect.
shared. And check out Anna if you want a dating coach or a matchmaker. She's phenomenal,
And it's
as you
free to
can
be set
tell.
up with a it's free to be set up with a client. So always hit me up if you want to be set up.
Oh, yes, you have a database, correct, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
so if you listen to this chat tonight, please sign up for her database. And thank you, Anna. I really love this, by the way. This was fun.
We'll have to do it again.
Okay, we'll do it again. Good night.
Bye.